In late July, a polled Wisconsin Democrats put Francesca Hong 29 points ahead in the primary for governor. 2.5 weeks later, she lost by half a point. Most of that gap has an explanation. And I want to be clear from the start that the explanation is not mine. It belongs to Elliott Morris, who got hold of the raw data and published a reanalysis. But there is a second half to this story that his reanalysis was not trying to cover, and that the brief I was commissioned from left out completely. Here is the whole record on one card. State Navigate, fielding the 23rd to the 26th of July among 1,085 likely Democratic primary voters. Hong 44, David Crowley 15, Mandela Barnes 14. Marquette's law school poll, fielding almost exactly the same days. Hong 38, Barnes 16, Crowley 7 and 34% undecided. State Navigate's final poll, interview and finishing on the 6th of August. Hong 44, Crowley 22. And the result on the 11th, Crowley 39.8, Hong 39.3. Look at that Marquette row for a second. The eventual winner is on 7%, and a third of the electorate has not chosen. Mars could reproduce State Navigate's published top lines from the raw file, which matters because it locates the failure. The problem was not the data processing, it was the targets the data was weighted to. Compared against electorates drawn from the L2 voter file, the actual August primary electorate looks to have been roughly 52 to 53% seniors and 2 to 3% under 30. State Navigate's July sample was 36% seniors and 17% under 30. Under 30 voters were overrepresented by something close to a factor of 6 in a race where the youngest voters were Hong's strongest group. That alone inflated her margin by 5 to 10 points. The second driver is that the race moved after the last poll closed, and here the design is genuinely good. State Navigate recontacted 633 of its own July respondents in August. Because those are the same people answering twice, the panel measures movement directly instead of inferring it from two different samples. Among those 633, the Hong-Crowley margin fell about 7 points in 10 days, from plus 33.6 to plus 27.1. Morris's estimate for total late movement, including the 5 days after interviewing stopped, is 6 to 10 points toward Crowley. Worth noting, the brief I was given reports the 7 and not the 6 to 10, which understates this driver by roughly a third. Third driver, non-response. Even after the demographic correction, Morris finds evidence that moderate Democrats were likelier to refuse the survey and that Hong's supporters were likelier to take it. He puts the effect at a further 2 to 5 points of inflation. And I want to flag something here because it is the one figure in my commissioning brief that is not merely missing, but wrong. The brief renders that ranges 0 to 5. Moving a floor from 2 to 0 converts a finding into a possibility. It changes non-response bias from something that definitely contributed into something that might have contributed nothing. Put the corrected weights together with a realistic allocation of the undecided voters, derived from those panel transitions, and Morris's modeled August race lands at Hong 34.4, Crowley 34.3, a margin of 1/10 of a point against an actual margin of half a point. That is the most striking number in the entire reanalysis, and it is absent from the brief, which says only that the race effectively became a dead heat. Effectively, a dead heat is an assertion. 34.4 to 34.3 is a result you can weigh. So that is the weighting story, and it is real and well evidenced. It is also the story of one pollster's methodology, and it can absorb attention that belongs somewhere else. Because a second set of facts explains a great deal of this race and requires no statistics at all. Between Marquette's final field date and the primary, the ballot changed shape. 3 candidates dropped out. Crowley, on 7% with Marquette, 15 with State Navigate, re-entered the race during that final month. And Mandela Barnes, the former lieutenant governor, polling 14 to 16%, did not appear on the ballot at all. Roughly 1 in 6 Democratic primary voters was expressing a preference for a candidate they would never get to vote for. Then Governor Tony Evers endorsed Crowley, very late. In Marquette's own reporting, 36% of Democratic primary voters said that endorsement made them more likely to back him. Set that beside the age finding and the mechanism is visible without any reweighting at all. The oldest voters were the most undecided and the most likely to turn out, and a sitting Democratic governor told them who to vote for. Days out. Which brings me to the sentence I think this whole episode turns on. A poll can be perfectly weighted and still be useless if the race has not happened yet. A survey showing 34% undecided is not primarily a measurement of who is winning. It is a measurement of how few people had chosen. And a poll conducted before a 16% candidate leaves the ballot is not a flawed forecast of the election that happened. It is an accurate measurement of a different election. Note also that Marquette, the state's most respected survey operation, also had Hong far ahead. So this was never one firm's failure, which is exactly the framing the brief recommends, while never citing Marquette, the fact that establishes it. And one last thing, which is the reason this file exists in the shape it does. The brief I was commissioned from describes its subject as the source. The article, a single author analysis with an explicit methodological perspective. It never says whose, every distinctive finding in it, the 5 to 10 point weighting effect, the 633 person panel, the L2 comparison, the Reweighted dead heat, the 4 recommendations for pollsters is G. Elliott Morris's work, published on the 13th of August, running that as our own reporting was never an option. He is credited by name and linked on every page. The full file is at lateddeciders.dailypoliticalpress.com. It has all 3 drivers worked through, the field collapse, and a page listing 9 findings from verification, including who sponsored the poll that produced the 29-point lead. Every photograph is public domain or openly licensed and credited. Where the brief and the record disagree, the record won, and I published the disagreement rather than quietly fixing it.